Hi, it's me, Jack. Today we are going to be unpacking the emotional orphan experience. You can have two living parents, a roof over your head, food on the table, and still be a functional orphan. It's a strange, quiet kind of grief, a deep loneliness that doesn't quite make sense from the outside. For years, I walked around with this ghost inside of me, this unshakable feeling that I was completely alone. I mean, I had parents, they were alive and well, yet I felt a sense of abandonment that I really couldn't put my finger on. It was a wound shaped not by what happened, but by what didn't happen. No one noticed, nobody came. There was just an absence where comfort and emotional safety should have been. It wasn't until I stumbled upon a term that my entire life, my relationships, my own sense of self finally started to click into place. That term was emotional orphan. If that feeling resonates with you, if it resonates with you, or if you've ever felt like you have grieving parents who are still alive, then you're in the right place. We need to unpack what it means to be an emotional orphan, where that feeling comes from, and most importantly, how to start the journey of healing. So, what is an emotional orphan? What exactly is an emotional orphan? Now, the term sounds dramatic, but it perfectly captures a very real and painful experience that I adopted as a term later for my artist name after being informed by a therapist that I was exactly that, an emotional orphan. We think of an orphan as a child who has lost their parents to death, but an emotional orphan is someone who, even with a physically present parents, grew up with profound lack of emotional support, validation, and connection. Your caregivers may have provided you for all your physical needs, and maybe they were at every school event and helped you financially, but the conversations always stayed on the surface. They were emotionally distant, unresponsive, or just unavailable, leaving you feeling unseen and fundamentally alone. This is the very core of childhood emotional neglect. It's not about obvious abuse, it's about the absence of emotional responsiveness. It's about not being given the tools to emotionally walk your way through this world. When you cried, were you told to toughen up? When you were scared, were you left to handle it on your own? When you were excited, was anyone there to really share your joy? This constant lack of emotional attunement creates what psychologists call the inner orphan archetype. It's a part of your psyche that gets frozen in time. An inner child who carries the deep seated belief that they are alone, that their needs don't matter, and that no one is coming to rescue them. This creates a constant low grade hum of emptiness and insecurity that follows you into adulthood, may leave you feeling like you don't belong anywhere. Oh, you might have a family, but you feel like you have no safe place to land. The roots of the wounded. So, where does this wound come from? The feeling of being an emotional orphan doesn't always just appear out of nowhere. Its roots are almost always planted in early childhood experiences where a child's basic needs for warmth, validation, and emotional mirroring go unmet. And it can shape your entire worldview, believe me. One of the most common patterns is the emotional deprivation schema. This is the deep internalized belief that your need for love, nurturing, and understanding will never truly be met by others. You might have had parents who were too caught up in their own issues, their own untreated depression, anxiety, or narcissistic traits. They were unable to provide unconditional love. They may not have been bad people, but they were simply incapable of giving you what you needed yourself, and they most likely never received it on their own. And then there's the abandonment schema. Now, this one is born from inconsistent caregiving. Maybe one day a parent was warm and present, but the next they were cold and distant. This unpredictability creates a persistent fear that the people you love will leave you. This can cause you to either cling desperately in relationships or push people away first in order to avoid being hurt. And then finally, you might see the self sacrifice or the subjugation schema. And this develops when a child learns that their own needs are an inconvenience. You might have had to become the parent to your own mother or father, taking on their emotional burdens. Your job was to make them feel stable, so you learn to suppress your own feelings and put everyone else's needs first. You grew up too fast, becoming a responsible little old soul who learned to fend for yourself because no one else would. These repeated disappointments, parents who forget important things about your life, use your vulnerabilities against you, or dismiss your feelings, they reinforce a devastating narrative that I am not worthy of being seen or cared for. So, how does this show up in our adult lives? That unhealed inner orphan doesn't stay in childhood, it does follow you. It quietly steers our emotions, behaviors, and relationships in our adulthood. Many people with this wound are high achievers, hyper independent, and amazing caretakers for others, but underneath it all, there's a quiet ache. In relationships, this can show up in a few different ways. You might have a massive problem with trusting others. There can be a constant nagging fear of rejection that's so intense it's sometimes called rejection dysphoria, where even a minor slight feels like proof of your deepest fear that you are unlovable. And this can lead to people pleasing, where you'll do almost anything to keep others happy so that they don't leave. You might struggle to set boundaries because you were taught your needs don't matter, or you could go the other way entirely, avoiding emotional closeness because it just feels too overwhelming and dangerous. You may long for a connection but stay emotionally guarded, convinced that if you show too much need, you'll be seen as a burden. So emotionally, the defining state is often a chronic sense of emptiness. It's a feeling that something essential is missing. Even when your life looks perfect on the outside, there's often a ton of shame. Shame for needing others. Shame for feeling weak when you ask for help. You might also carry a lot of suppressed anger and grief for the childhood that you never had. And this can lead to what is called orphan energy, a guarded, sometimes prickly exterior that keeps people at a distance even when you're desperate for connection. So behaviorally, you might be a perfectionist, believing your worth is tied to what you achieve. You might find it incredibly difficult to practice self-compassion. Your inner critic is often just a reflection of the dismissive parental voice that you've internalized. And when holidays or family events roll around, that feeling of being an orphan becomes excruciating, highlighting the gap between the family you have and the one you desperately wish for. So what's the path to healing? Reparenting your inner orphan. Hearing all of this can feel heavy, but the most important message to take away is this: healing is absolutely possible. The journey isn't about blaming your parents, it's about acknowledging your pain and learning to give yourself what you've never received. This process is called reparenting, and it means becoming the consistent, warm, and nurturing caregiver for yourself that you've always needed. And the first step, that's awareness and grieving. You have to acknowledge what happened, or rather what didn't happen, and recognize and accept that the emotional neglect was real. It's okay to grieve the loss of parents you wished that you had. This isn't about dwelling in the past, but about honoring the very real pain your inner child went through. It's about validating your own story. The second piece is inner child work, and this means reconnecting with that frozen child part of you. You can do this through visualization, journaling, therapy, deep meditation. A simple but powerful exercise would be to close your eyes, picture yourself at an age when you felt most alone, and then imagine yourself walking into the room, kneeling down and giving that child a hug. Tell them, "I'm here now. I will protect you. Your feelings are valid, and I'm here to listen." This isn't just a mental trick. It's about creating new neural pathways of safety and self-compassion. Third is building up corrective experiences. Since the wound was created in relationships, it also needs to be healed in relationships. This can be with a therapist who provides a safe space, or by building a supportive friendships with people around who are empathetic and validating. It's about surrounding yourself with people who truly see you and let you show up as your authentic self without fear of judgment. And finally, this journey is held up by daily practices, and this is where you become your own good parent day in and day out. You practice self-compassion by replacing your inner critic with kind, affirming self-talk. Learn to set healthy boundaries. For an emotional orphan, saying no is a radical act of self-care. Tune into your body and allow yourself to feel your emotions without judgment, and create routines that give you the stability your childhood may have lacked. This is all about showing up for yourself consistently with the love and attention that you've always deserved. This journey of reparenting can feel lonely, but you are not alone in this experience. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What part of the emotional orphan experience resonated with you the most? Sharing our stories is one of the most powerful ways that we can break the silence and the shame. If you find that this was helpful, please consider subscribing for more content on healing, self-discovery, and finding our way back to ourselves. In conclusion, realizing that you're an emotional orphan can be both heartbreaking and incredibly liberating. It's heartbreaking because you have to face the truth of what's been lost, but it's liberating because it gives your pain a name. It tells you that you're not broken and that you're not too sensitive. You're not imagining things. Your feelings are a completely logical response to an unmet need. Healing these wounds is a slow and transformative process. It's a journey of self-discovery and profound self-compassion. By learning to reparent that wounded inner child, you begin to feel that sense of emptiness from within. You learn to trust yourself, to value your own needs, and to build relationships based on real connection. It is the journey of finally coming home to yourself, of building an inner world so that safety and loving yourself can no longer feel like an orphan, but you'll feel like someone who is whole, complete, and finally at peace.